Divinity Original Sin 2 Definitive Edition arrived a little over 2 weeks ago, and with it came some interesting changes to the game. While most builds remain untouched, there are some tweaks to a few of them. Players have been asking me not only to update these builds, but also create new ones. In this guide, I will be introducing the Sanguine Bowmen and explain how it works. The Sanguine Bowman uses a mix of Huntsman and Necromancer skills in order to deal good damage to many targets, as well as give the character multiple ways to deal physical damage. The biggest weakness of Rangers and Necromancers is that they blow through their skills rapidly, leaving them with gaps in their cooldowns. With the Sanguine Bowman, we not only rectify this by adding more skills to use, but we also add versatility to both of these builds. The best way to start this build is by picking the Ranger class and removing the point from Wits and placing it in Intelligence. Then remove the point from Pyrokinetic, place it into Necromancer, and then select the Mosquito Swarm skill. This will give you 2 decent skills early on and allow you to buff your bow damage with elemental arrowheads. When creating this build, you want to be sure to select the elf as a race because you will absolutely need Flesh Sacrifice. As far as attributes go, you will be splitting your points between Finesse and Intelligence. Usually this is not recommended, however, because Warfare will increase the damage of both your Huntsman and Necromancer skills, you can get away with it. Not to mention that Huntsman will also benefit both skill lines. You do not need a perfect split between these attributes, and I recommend favoring Finesse earlier in the game when you don't have access to Grasp of the Starved. You will also find Memory is not an issue for this build because there are so few attack skills to these skill lines. Sanguine Bowmen have some flexibility between intelligence-based and finesse-based armor and should look to have a good mix of physical and magical defense. Sanguine Bowmen don't have many defensive abilities, so they will need to have good armor values to prevent them from getting status effects. When selecting armor, be sure to prioritize equipment with Warfare on it in order to maximize your damage output. For this build, you'll be using a bow, big surprise, and you want to look for crossbows or bows with critical chance on them. This will increase the likelihood of your Necromancer skills critically striking as well as your Huntsman skills, so it's ideal. You want to be on the lookout for bows or crossbows with acid, atrophy, or bleeding on them as well. In terms of abilities, you'll start with 1 point each in Huntsman and Necromancer. This will give you access to level 1 skills of both skill lines. Then you will take Polymorph to 1, granting you access to Bull Rush and Chameleon Cloak. Next, you'll take both Huntsman and Necromancer to 2 in order to gain Tactical Retreat, Skyshot, Infect, and Death Wish. If you took the Torturer talent, you'll want to place 1 point into Hydrosophist here in order to gain Raining Blood. From this point onward, you will pump Warfare in order to increase your damage with both skill lines, only putting points into Necromancer or Huntsman to gain level 3 skills if you wish. If you manage to max Warfare, then you'll want to pump Huntsman for bonus damage from Elevation. As far as talents go, I'd recommend the following. Elemental Affinity. This will allow you to cast Necromancer skills for 1 less AP if you use Flesh Sacrifice, which you will nearly always do at the beginning of combat. I would begin the game with this talent. Torturer. This talent will allow your Bull Rush, Raining Blood, and Mosquito Swarm to set bleeding through physical armor. In addition, it will allow you to set Acid as well and will increase the duration of these effects as well as Death Wish. Note that at the time of this video, the duration is currently bugged and not being applied, but this is expected to be patched. Savage Sortilege. This talent will allow your Necromancer skills to critically strike, which you will want as your critical chance starts to improve. This is usually near the end of Act 1 or beginning of Act 2, so aim to get it around there. Executioner. This talent will provide you +2 AP per round if you manage to kill a target. Has particularly good synergy here because of your high damage and because of the amount of bleeding you will cause. If an enemy dies from bleeding on its turn, you will gain +2 AP to begin yours, and then you can gain an additional +2 AP if you kill an enemy on your turn. Living Armor. Because you will heal often with this build, this talent is a great way to replenish your magic armor. Consider taking this one if you are having trouble staying alive. Far Out Man. Nearly all your skills with this build are targeted and affected by this talent. Consider taking this one in order to be able to reach more enemies. Hothead. This will increase your overall critical chance by 10% and accuracy by 10% when at max vitality. Accuracy isn't useful for casting, but will help with the increased dodge chance enemies have in the Definitive Edition. You also heal a lot with this build, so you'll likely be at or near max vitality constantly. Sanguine Bowmen use a mix of Huntsman and Necromancer skills in order to keep enemies bleeding and deal tons of physical damage. Below is a list of skills you will use, and I put them in order you should obtain them in. Character Creation. Ricochet. This skill will allow you to hit multiple enemies, which helps soften them up for physical damage CCs that your warrior will do. It also helps to spread status effects on your weapon that can go through armor because of the Torturer talent. Elemental Arrowheads. This skill allows you to coat your arrows in blood if you use Flesh Sacrifice, making them deal increased physical damage. This will also increase the damage Bull Rush does as well, which is an added bonus. Mosquito Swarm. This skill will set a target bleeding and heal you for the damage done. This is a great way to heal offensively and only costs 1 AP if you are standing in blood with elemental affinity. Character levels 1 to 3. Bull Rush. Bull Rush, funny enough, actually works with a bow or crossbow and can set bleeding through armor with a torture talent. It also is a great way to spread any status effects on your weapon, like acid as well. Scales with the attribute of your weapon. Chameleon Cloak. This skill will allow you to go invisible when you're in danger and is just great all around. Use it when you would otherwise be in a bad spot at the end of your turn. Raining Blood. A great way to set bleeding on many targets at once and only costs 1 AP with elemental affinity. You will use this situationally and works extremely well when paired with Grasp of the Starved. Character levels 4 to 8. Tactical Retreat. This skill will allow you to get up high where you can gain bonus damage and range out of range of melee units and also give you extra AP next turn. This should be the first thing you do in combat to position yourself up high if you can, and then use Flesh Sacrifice once there. Skyshot. This skill will grant you elevation bonus damage even if you are not up high. Useful for dealing extra damage when not elevated, and can also help you reach targets you might not otherwise be able to. Challenge. This skill costs 0 AP and increases your armor, vitality, and damage if you kill the target within 3 turns. An absolute must-have skill for any build that uses Warfare as a means to increase damage. Infect. This skill has a hefty cost at 3 AP, but it is reduced by 1 with elemental affinity and sets diseased on the target if it has no physical armor. It outperforms a basic bow attack by about 25% when you have the same amount of intelligence and finesse. Try not to use it unless you are standing in blood. Death Wish. This skill is great for dealing increased damage when your vitality is low, which won't be as often as you'd like. When using it, try to aim for targets with armor first to avoid healing from Necromancer passive as long as possible, maximizing your damage. Character levels 9 and up. Ballistic Shot. This skill hits extremely hard from long range and gains even more damage when elevated. This is your go-to obliterate target skill. Use this when you need to deal a lot of damage in a hurry and don't waste it on targets you can kill with other skills. Assassinate. This skill deals increased damage from sneak, making it a great choice to begin an encounter you know is coming. This skill does not work from invisible, only sneak. Grasp of the Starved. This skill deals insane damage in an AoE if there is a lot of blood on the ground. Use Raining Blood, then cast this for best results. You can add other skills to this as well, but these are the minimum ones I would add. For example, Shackles of Pain is not a bad choice to prevent damage, and Bone Cage could work under certain circumstances. You could also add First Aid and Marksman's Fang if you wish for even more flexibility. Final tips. You can begin combat with extremely low health in order to gain the most possible damage from Death Wish if you want. If you do so, however, be sure that you have high initiative so that you can go first. Some enemies have attacks that penetrate armor and you may die before you can even do anything otherwise. A great way to lower your health easily is by putting a poison pool near any way shrine. The poison will never vanish, allowing you to port there and just walk around it until your health is low, and then port back to wherever you want. Bleeding deals piercing damage which goes through all armor types, and this is true whether you have Torture or not. This makes it effective at dealing damage to any target and helps in mixed parties. Bleeding cannot critically strike and does not increase in damage with any attribute, it simply gets more powerful as your level increases. My kingdom for a skill like Combustion that consumes bleeding for burst damage. Skills like Encourage and Peace of Mind can really help this build because of the split attributes. Consider adding them to your party and using them just before combat begins. You can gain nearly 50% damage later on in the game for the 2 AP cost of these skills, which is a lot. Lastly, you can play this build as an undead if you use the Mask of the Shapeshifter to gain Flesh Sacrifice. The advantages of this are that you can reliably deal damage to yourself via healing spells, allowing you to make better use of Death Wish, and you are immune to poison damage. The disadvantages are that you will fill your helmet slot with a mask, and that it may be harder for you to lower your health in between fights since the poison pool trick will no longer work. You will also not gain this mask until further on in the game, meaning you will be less effective earlier on. As always, be sure to check out our other build guides, and good luck sorcerers, Rivlon is counting on you.